Challenges are gifts that force us to search for a new center of gravity. Just fight with them and find a new way to stand. On that positive note, I, Dr. Nitish Srivastav, Associate Professor, IIEBM, welcome you all to one more power-packed session of the IIEBM's induction program of 21st batch, Ignite 2020. This session will be of an hour, where first 40 minutes will be knowledge sharing, and rest 20 minutes will be for question and answers. You can type your questions in the chat box during this session that will be addressed at the end of the session. So let me introduce the dynamic, versatile, and wonderful personality, Dr. Sonali Jadhav. She's a strong education professional with a PhD focused in human resource from Savitribai Phule, Pune University. She started her career in hotel sales as a team member of Rao Marketing Technology Limited in 1989. This was an independent company providing marketing consultancy to various standalone hotel properties all over the country. She headed the Western Regional Office in India. Having a passion for cooking, she changed her career path to set up a very trendy cafeteria with college students as her target customers. In a short span of 6 years, her customer base increased to almost 2,000, as indicated in the cafeterias community on Orkut in 1996. Her career path changed once more when she ventured in the field of academics in 1998 and joined Bharati Vidyapeeth's Institute of HMCT as a lecturer in food production. She shifted to AISSMS College in 1999 and has been a part of the academics team for more than a decade. She was promoted to the post of principal in July 2008. Having graduated in French major, she has co-authored the book Basics French for the Hotel Industry. Dr. Sonali is presently holding a position of principal at AISSMS CHMCT, where she's contributing in the institution brand building and accreditation as per government norms. She is also in Pune University panel for curriculum development and is a member of various prestigious bodies like staff selection committees and local inspection committees. She is also the member of Board of Studies, Hotel Management at Pune University. She's skilled in coaching, hospitality industry, team building, English, and management. So without taking much time, let us start the session, and like the IIEBM way we say, let knowledge prevail. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening to all of you. It's always a pleasure to address the students of IIEBM. And to the fresh batch, I must say that you're very lucky to be in an institute that invests in your overall development, right from grooming to preparing you in management techniques that will go a long way in your careers. I would like to thank Dr. Jai for inviting me yet another time, and Poonam for facilitating the session and our moderator for today. So should we start with the presentation?
Ma'am.
All right. So how do I get?
I'm starting from here.
You're right. Okay. I've been given 45 minutes to speak, followed by a question-answer session. I know it's the end of the day and all of you must be tired, but I'm going to try and make this session interesting by adding a lot of anecdotes and stories and good clips that you will enjoy. So let's get started. So looking at this first slide, you know that my talk is going to be on women. It's a woman-centric subject, and especially in the professional sphere, okay? But there is a disclaimer that I'm not a feminist at all. In fact, I believe in equality of genders for men and women. But I do enjoy taking digs at men more often than not, and whenever I get an opportunity. But having said that, there's a lot that even the boys will learn out of this session. So, as we talk of women in leadership positions in our professional life, I'm sure you know of a lot of such empowered women around you. You've seen them in social media, you've heard about them, you've heard their stories. So, if there is a possibility of students typing, I would want you to type the name of one woman that inspires you, both men and women. Both of you can type. So, can we go to that text, or that's not possible?
Ma'am, we can go. We can see the chat. Whatever students are writing, we can see in the chat option.
Okay. So, students, can you just type somebody that you really admire and you would want to be in her position, or you would like to take inspiration from her? So, let's see whether you're Kiran Bedi, very good. Shreyal Sandberg, okay. Others? Come on, guys. I need to see you all active in my session. This is the first time I'm doing a webinar. Okay, I don't think anybody is interested in typing so many answers, but that's okay. The topic for today is led by women, and what is the difference when women lead the teams? So, okay, there are a lot of Sundar Pichai, Kalpana Chawla, my mother. Okay, very nice. All right. So let's go on to the next slide. So, who is a leader? So there is a difference between being a manager and being a leader, right? A manager is somebody who has a position of authority and he has to lead his group in a particular direction. That is his job. But a leader necessarily does not have any kind of a designation. You can have a leader in your family who takes decisions in your family and steers you in a particular direction. You can have a leader in your friend circle who will influence the group of people, and then all of you follow him or her the way they want to be led. They'll lead you in a particular direction. So a person who influences a group of people towards achieving of a goal is called a leader. Okay, now here we have a slide of these leaders, and this is trending very heavily on the internet. So looking at this slide, I'm sure you know what I'm going to talk about. Uh, in this day of, in this era of the pandemic, these are the leaders who have made a lot of difference in the world, okay? I'm sure you recognize all the men below. Donald Trump, is from America. Boris Johnson, is from United Kingdom. Do you know where Jair Bolsonaro is from? If you do, please type where he is from, which country. And there is a reason why these men are here on this slide. And there is a reason why these women are here on this slide. So we have Angela Merkel, who is the Chancellor of Germany and also a de facto leader of European Union. Then you have Jacinda Ardern, who is the Prime Minister of New Zealand. You have Met Frederiksen, who is the Prime Minister of Denmark, and Tsai Ing-wen, who is the Prime Minister of Republic of China, which is now called as Taiwan. Okay, so these are the prime ministers and leaders who have battled the pandemic, and the women have done it so exceptionally well that they have overcome all the challenges. Their countries are almost COVID free now, and they are leading normal lives. As against that, you have these men here who lead the most developed of countries in the world, and they have made a mess of the whole pandemic situation. So, what is the reason for this? It's one of the most talked about stories in the world, and the men are being compared to the women. The thing is that when women decided to take decisions on where to take their country, how to take their country to safety, they listened to the data that was provided by the scientists, the statisticians, They try to find out the best possible scenario, and they never took chances. They prefer to play it very, very safe. They imposed lockdowns. They stopped flights coming from other countries to their countries, and almost eradicated COVID from their countries. On the other hand, the men had big egos. Trump said it's just a flu, you don't need a mask. Social distancing is not required, and economy is far more important. Boris Johnson did the same thing. He did not wear a mask, and both Boris and Bolsonaro, both of them got COVID eventually, and now everybody is wearing a mask. Okay, so it is very exceptional that you have these lady leaders who have led their countries to safety, and you have these men, unfortunately, who have made a mess of things. Not that all men are like that, but this is just one of the slides to tell you, even in today's world, ego plays such an important part, and it can mess up your flow of taking your population along with you. So, what does it take to be a good leader? Good leaders are, of course, not born. To be a leader, you do not need to have a DNA. You can develop yourself to be a leader. If you have a desire and the willpower, you can become an effective leader. Believe in yourself and lead with conviction. And good leaders develop through a never ending process of self study, education, training, and experience. So you have to be a lifelong learner. Learning should stop only when you die. Okay? Now, the next slide is about some exceptional women in India. Unfortunately, I don't have women that you have spoken about, but I've taken the most obvious women. So, guys, this is the CEO of Pepsi Cola. I'm sure all of you know her, but please type her name if you can. Can we have you typing the name? I like interactive sessions, and I don't like this one-way traffic, Indra Nui is one of the biggest management gurus and an inspiration. And she has consistently been ranked amongst the top 100 most powerful women in the world, reaching the rank of a second position in the Forbes list. I would like to share a clip with you where she talks about having it all. This is especially true for women, where women struggle with their work area and home area, and they try and balance between the two. They feel they cannot have it all. Sometimes they have to make a lot of sacrifices, huge sacrifices in their personal space if they have to make space for their ambition. And that is seen all around the world. But what Indra Nui has been saying is that if for some reason you are able to balance the two, and with a few trade-offs, you can have the best of both the worlds. And here is a small clip that that gives a little insight into what she's saying. Can you play the clip?
Well,
Yeah,
on a
thanks.
relative basis, yes, I've had it all. Okay, on a relative basis, I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful husband, two great kids, a very tight-knit family, and an awesome job with a great team. But to get here and to stay here, I mean, lots of trade-offs, lots of sacrifices, under the water, a lot of collateral damage. But I think somehow I've had the strength to power through all of that. Can you have it all? That's the big question in this definition. I think if you have the right support system, if you have an understanding spouse, if you want to be married, and if you're willing to make all the trade-offs that you need to make, you can have it all. But while you do all that, there will be heartache, there will be pain, there will be some collateral damage underneath the surface. You've got to live with it.
When you became the president of Pepsi, you came home one day and your mother was there, and she asked you to get some milk, and well, maybe you could tell the story better than I could.
Well, it was way back in 2000, and I was just informed about 9:30 in the night from a phone call that I was going to be president of the company. And so I went home because I was working on the Quaker Oats deal. to tell my family that I was going to be president of PepsiCo. And I walked in the house and Mom opens the door. She was living with me at that time. And I said, Mom, I got news for you. And she said, well, before your news, go get some milk. I said, it's 10 o'clock in the night. Why should I get milk? And I noticed that my husband's car was in the garage. I said, why didn't you tell him to get the milk? She said, well, he came at 8. He was very tired. So I let him be. Now you go get the milk. And, you never question your mom. So I went and got the milk, came back, sort of banged it on the countertop. And I said, I had big news for you. I had just been appointed president of PepsiCo, and all that you care about is the milk. And she just looked at me and she said, what are you talking about? She said, when you walk in that door, just leave that crown in the garage, because you are the wife, the daughter-in-law, and the mother of the kids, and that's all I want to talk about. Anything else, just leave it in the garage. So don't even try this with me anymore. So I think with Mom, you don't try anything.
But she must be very proud that you're the CEO.
I think she is, but she keeps me very grounded, David.
What is more difficult, being a woman to being a CEO, or being an immigrant being a CEO, or being a combination? What do you think has caused you more difficulty, and what did you have to overcome more?
I don't know if it's difficulty. I think being a woman, an immigrant, has had its positives and its negatives. It's had its positives because people take notice of you because you're so different. You walk in the room, people go, oh, she's a different sort of a person, female, immigrant, tall, all of these work together. It's been difficult because they go, how will she know how to run this great American company? So I think it's been both a positive and negative, but I'd say on balance, more of a positive than a negative.
Okay. Do you think a woman today has it easier than when you became CEO, or do you still feel that you still have to work harder to be a woman CEO than, let's say, a man who is a CEO of an equivalent-sized company?
I think easier today only because there are few more of us in positions of power. But I think from a personal perspective, it's got nothing to do with women or being in this position. I have the immigrant fear. So I'm always afraid that if I fail, I may have to go back to something that I don't want to go back to. And so that fear always motivates me, and I drive myself to be better and better and better at my job every day.
So you're a role model, obviously, for many women. Do you see yourself as a role model, and particularly from women from India or from outside the United States?
I don't have a choice but to be a role model, and I feel a privilege to be the role model, whether it's for women, for minorities, for Indian women for sure. Everybody looks up to me and wants to learn from me and get my advice. I can't give them all enough time. That's the thing that makes me feel very bad, because I get letters every day asking for advice or whether I'd be a mentor to people. I can't do it all. So I try to do my best by speaking in public forums and trying to disseminate information on a large scale. But I think because there are so few of us, we have to play the role of being the role model, and we have to make sure we do a good job, because we have to set the standard for others who might follow in our footsteps.
So one time I think I read when your husband was saying, well, Indra, you're spending all your time on Pepsi, 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 and what about me? And what was your response?
Well, he always tells me, even today, he'll tell me that your list is PepsiCo, 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 then the kids, then your mom, and somewhere in the bottom I sit there, and I keep telling him, you're on the list, just be happy you're on the list. But he knows that I love him dearly. He knows that he is my rock, that he's my life. But he likes to be higher up on the list.
Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed that little clip. What happened to our PPT? Right. Okay, so looking towards India, here is the story of this Thimmakka, who's a Padmashree awardee. She's called Saalumarada Thimmakka. Saalumarada is actually a word which says, it indicates a line. So what she did was she planted a lot of trees in one line. Altogether, 284 banyan trees were planted by her and looked after her, because she said, they are my children. I don't have children, and so this is what I'm going to do. And she created ecological wonders in the area that she worked in, and she received a lot of awards for the change in the environment that happened. These trees have been valued at 1.5 million rupees. Now, here is a woman who has no formal education whatsoever. She is a woman who had a vision. She is a woman who had conviction and decided to give back to the society, make a difference, uh, create an environmental friendly kind of uh, attribute towards the environment of the country and build this uh, banyan grove or whatever you call it, so that it will be for the future generations. They say that she used to carry water 4 kilometers in order to water these plants, and they tried and planted the plants only in the monsoon so it would have enough water. Okay, so you need not be highly educated to be somebody who can make a difference. Of course, she's a popular figure, Smriti Irani. So one of the thoughts is that we as women, we just don't want to take people in a direction that they want to go, but where they ought to go. And with this thought, Smriti Irani has made a big difference in the areas of work, in various areas of work. She was a daughter of a Bengali mother and a Punjabi Maharashtrian father, married to a Parsi. She's extremely talented, started as a model, went on to acting in the TV, and eventually entered politics. Though I have to say that since her childhood, she was a member of the RSS. Currently, she's serving in the cabinet of Narendra Modi as a Minister of Textiles with additional charge of Minister of Women and Child Development. There is a reason why these pictures are here, though I don't have anything extra to share with you right now. I will come back to why I have put these women on my slides. Okay. Another woman in power is Kiran Manik Shaw. Kiran Muzumdar Shaw. So she actually is a daughter of a brew master. You know what is brewing? Distilleries where they make alcohol and you brew the alcohol. Her father was a brew master. And when she grew up, she wanted to join medicine, but the father said, no, I want you to be a brew master. Besides, you haven't got the scholarship. So she went to Australia to become a brew master and she worked there in various companies. She came back to India as a consultant to the brewing companies, but nobody would give her a job of a brewmaster here in India because they said it's a man's job. Then she got an offer from one of the companies in Ireland to go and train there and come back and start a subsidiary here. Okay. And so she went to Ireland as a management trainee, and that is when her line changed completely. She joined the Biocon Biochemicals Limited in Cork Island. This particular company makes enzymes which it uses for brewing, food packaging, and textile industries. So she started Biocon India in 1978 in the garage of a rented house in Bangalore with a seed capital of only 10,000 rupees. So when we look at all these women, what is it that these women have in common? Or why are these women here against many other women that I've not put here? The thing is that these women started without any idea of where they were going to reach. They did not envisage, they did not plan, they just concentrated on what they have in hand. Smriti was an actor. And Kiran was a brewing master and a consultant for distilleries. And then they changed their line the moment an opportunity presented itself and climbed up the ladder pretty fast. So it's not always about being a CEO is something that you envisage and you start working towards it. There are surprises in life, there are opportunities, doors that open that you can make the most of, and then climb the ladder. Okay, before we go on to what makes a CEO, this photograph, as you know, is a Taj Mahal hotel in Bombay, right? It is a very famous, luxurious heritage hotel belonging to the Taj Group. But what it is more famous for is for the terrorist attack that happened on 26th of November in 2008. There were terrorists in this hotel for 3 days. There was 1,700 people in the hotel, including the employees and the guests. Out of these 1,700 people with the terrorists on a rampage for 3 days, they managed to kill only 34, including guests and employees. So what is it that saved lives? It was the leadership from below, the employees leading from the bottom, the waiters, the supervisors, the telephone operators doing their bit, leading the high-profile guests, the VIPs, the CEOs, and the directors to safety. Let us look at a clip of this by Rohit Deshpande. It's a longish clip, but it's one of my absolute favorites, and you will enjoy seeing it too. Can we have the clip, please?
On the 26th of November 2008, as you just heard, a group of 10 terrorists attacked the city of Mumbai, what used to be called Bombay, in India. They broke up into teams to attack about a dozen different locations. One of those locations was the iconic, beautiful, 103-year-old Taj Mahal Palace Hotel in South Bombay. For 3 nights, 2 days, there was absolute havoc in that hotel. Guests were terrorized, people wounded, shot, killed. This group of terrorists with automatic weapons, plastic explosives and grenades in backpacks roamed freely through this old hotel. Many of us, many of you, witnessed or saw some of that coverage on television at home. Let's take a closer look.
The evening of November 26, 2008 was a typical busy Wednesday for the Taj. More than 500 guests were registered at the hotel. Another 500 to 600 were attending functions in banquet halls or sitting down to dinner in the hotel's 10 restaurants.
Ma'am, I would request you to please mute your system because then echo is coming for the video.
Shortly after 9 p.m., an explosion rocked the Leopold Cafe just around the corner, less than 200 meters from the Taj. 2 young men pulled out automatic weapons and began firing. Crowds at the Gateway of India and along the street in front of the Taj panicked, many rushing the doors of the hotel. In the ensuing chaos, 2 heavily armed terrorists circumvented the metal detectors and entered the lobby. They were soon joined by the 2 attackers from the Leopold, who broke through a back door.
9:35 or 9:40 was the first call I got from one of my chefs. And I think some shooting is taking place. A person has been shot dead outside my restaurant. Then we heard another gunshot, and I told him on the phone only, I said, just close all the kitchens, all the restaurant doors.
They were banging the door. They were alerting everyone, come out, otherwise we'll shoot you. There were few guests who, they were scared and they came out by putting their hands up, and they started hitting them, they started harassing them. It was horrible.
The situation, the entire scenario was very scary. We couldn't judge at that time what is exactly happening in the hotel.
It was a literally war situation. You can hear grenade lobbing around. You can hear the gunshot also.
We did not know the scale of the attack. We did not know what exactly was going on, where they were. at that moment. And there was total chaos. My colleagues were trapped with guests in various places, asking me what should we do next.
So picture what's happening inside that hotel. There are 500 guests who are registered at that hotel this night of 26th November. There are an additional 600 or so guests who are in various restaurants, attending various banquets and functions. There are about 600 or so staff members on duty that night. Young people, many of them very young, 20, 30-year-old. Some of them, the staff members had only been working for a few years at this hotel. Many of them fathers and mothers, the sole breadwinners in their families with children at home waiting for them. One of the things, we don't know a lot about the detail about what happened there, but one of the things we do know is that all 600 of these employees knew all the back routes. They knew the exits, they knew the entrances, they knew the hallways, the kitchen galleys. In other words, they knew how to get out and how to get out fast. All the research we have in psychology would tell us that the natural human instinct at a time of terror like this is to flee. So think about it, what you would do. So when I teach this case study at Harvard, I ask my students, I say, how many of these employees do you think fled, and how many of them do you think stayed? And they'll hazard guesses, and the maximum, they say, that would stay would be maybe a quarter, 150 or so. But that's the maximum. Everybody who can run away will run away. Well, the truth of the matter is that nobody ran away. They all stayed. In fact, some of them not only stayed, they helped guests out and came back in to help more guests. It's an amazing story. These are some of their stories.
The staff of the Taj stayed on duty throughout the siege, calming frightened guests and assisting in their rescue. Many even came back inside after leading guests out of the building. Members of the hotel's team of telephone operators, originally evacuated, voluntarily returned to their stations and stayed on all night.
They became the hub of communication at that point. They were the ones calling every single guest room, talking to the guests and telling them to stay in, don't step out, lock your door.
As the terrorists roamed the halls, telephone operators instructed trapped guests to pull their key cards to turn off the illuminated occupied button in the hallway outside their doors.
The attack started at 9:30 in the evening. Till 4 o'clock they were answering guest calls. I think that speaks a lot for a hotel under attack.
Among the guests at the Taj that night were members of the Global Board of Directors and senior management team of Unilever, who had gathered along with their spouses to honor incoming and outgoing CEOs.
So we had this really elaborate 7-course meal, and that was sort of the setting, the mood. There was warmth, there was laughter, there was a perfect setting for a nostalgic farewell and a perfect setting for a nice welcome. And I heard what seemed to me, which is an untrained ear, like firecrackers in the hotel.
We started getting these text messages and phone calls. There were some gunmen on the loose. The only logical thing to do was to close the doors and just stay put.
Malika came to us and said, we think there's a problem. We're not sure what exactly it is, but I request all of you to be on the ground right now. The level of calm and composure that the staff displayed was amazing, was absolutely amazing, because they had the presence of mind to even advise us, saying, couples, please separate, don't stay at the same place, just be in different corners of the room.
65 lives at stake, so can't take a chance. So obviously we were in touch with security all the time and had a lot of alcohol in the room, so that helped a little.
This went on the whole night. We were on the floor with our hearts in our mouth, with debris falling all around us, the noises of firecrackers all around, and all through the staff kept their composure, kept coming to us saying, do you want some water, do you want something?
Well, I was scared, but there was something more important to be done.
And this went on till 4 or 5 in the morning when the room filled with smoke, so we had no choice but to find a way to escape.
The entire corridor outside the hall was on fire. There was no way we could get out. The fire guys were outside and they were dousing the fire on the 6th floor. And we happened to see Mr. Kang downstairs as well. So he sort of ushered the fire guys to us.
We sort of climbed onto the ledge and did some stuff which in today's normal day I wouldn't be able to do, but we sort of came onto the ledge, climbed down to the ladders which by then the fire brigade people had come. The staff insisted that we would go first, guests would go first. And they kept like that till all of us had come down, and then they all came down.
Well, in a way, because I was there, I was looking after the function, I was responsible. I could have been the youngest in the room, and I know at one point of time I was the youngest in the room, but I was still doing my job.
The easiest thing for our staff to do at that point in time was to drop whatever they were doing and run out of the hotel. Not one did that. Not one.
I come from an army background, not myself but my father, he retired as a general in the army, and he often used to say, when I was even appointed here as the general manager, he used to often tell me that you are now like the captain of the ship. And I think that's the way you think, that you are the captain of the ship, and you have to be the last one to leave, and if it sinks, you sink with it.
At some point, our kitchen brigade decided that it looked like a lull in the thing and they could be taken out from the back of the kitchen through the fire exit to the back road. And our chefs had formed a human chain to escort people in the darkness down those stairs. And as hundreds of them were being evacuated, somehow 2 of those terrorists got to know that this was happening. And the terrorists arrived there and saw these chefs lined up, herding people away, and there was mayhem. They cut loose, and that's where we lost our biggest numbers there. We had 5 or 6 of our chefs gunned down, but they took the bullets.
Said that they risked their lives in just making sure the guests were safe.
I don't think we would have made it out of the hotel without the support, the assurance, the constant service orientation that the staff provided, without doubt, which is why we will continue to be so grateful to them.
I can't explain it. There were no manuals, there were no instructions for what should be done under the circumstances. So what seems to have happened is individuals, from the waiters to the managers of the restaurants, all had this goal of let's get the guests to safety.
To reiterate, 500 registered guests, 600 guests in restaurants and banquets, like that Unilever Boer event that you just heard about. 600 employees. So that's 1,700 people that night. Of those 1,700, over 1,600 escaped safely. Only 34 people died. Of those 34, fully half were staff members of the hotel. So when we were working on this case study, I asked senior management how this happened, why this happened, what explains the behavior of their staff. And these are young people. Malika Jagat, the banquet manager for the Unilever event whom you saw speaking, 24 years old. What explains it? And you heard, they can't explain it. Senior management. Mr. Ratan Tata, head of the Tata Group of companies, they own the Taj hotels. He couldn't explain it. So I teach this at Harvard. I bring this case study back and I teach this at the Harvard Business School as a case study of leadership from below. You know, we teach usually about leadership as being something from the top that filters down. This is leadership from below. It's just amazing. And I ask my students, how do you explain it? And they have plausible explanations for the behavior of the employees. Some of them say, well, it must be the culture, the national culture of India. You know, there must be something in the value system there that explains it. And in fact, there is. It turns out that there is a value or a belief that says a guest is to be treated like God. When a guest enters your home, treat her or him like God. Atiti Devo Bhava in Sanskrit. Other students say, no, 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 it's not national culture, it's corporate culture. If the Taj Hotels is owned by this family, the Tata Group, they have a long history in India of very benevolent human resource policies, a family of integrity in their business dealings. It's the corporate culture. And others say, no, it's not that. This happened at a hotel. It's the industry culture. It's hospitality. Employees are trained to serve customers. So that's what's going on. All of these are very plausible. So along with another colleague, I decided to go back into the Taj Hotel company records to try to understand their human resource policy. Who were these people? Who were this staff? Where did they find them? How did they recruit them? How did they motivate them? How did they train them? And I learned lots of really, really intriguing things. Let me share, in the interest of time, just 3 of them with you. First, about recruiting. You know, they recruit their frontline employees from high schools, not from the major cities, not from Bombay or Delhi or Calcutta or Madras. They recruit them from small towns. Haldia, Chandigarh, Nashik, Tiruchirappalli, small towns. And they recruit students, graduating students, for attitude, not grades. They ask their headmasters or their teachers, who are the students that you teach who have the most respect for older people, for their parents, for the teachers? They're not looking for the students who do the best in grades, but rather for attitude. Then training. This is fascinating. You know, you've heard of brand ambassadors. Lots of companies, many organizations perhaps that you represent, train their frontline staff to be ambassadors for the brand, for the company. You know what they do at the Taj Hotels? They train their frontline employees to be ambassadors for the customer, for the guest. It's very different. It's counterintuitive. They call them guest ambassadors. They believe frontline employees should be the voice of the client, of the customer, of the guest to the company. And third, and perhaps most importantly, their motivation system, their reward system, incentives, is not just monetary. They pay about average, little above average in that hotel sector in India. But they reward people with recognition, personal recognition. So when an employee does something that delights customers and the guest writes a note, within 48 hours that employee is recognized. 48 hours. They don't have to wait for a Diwali or a Christmas bonus. It happens within 48 hours. Amazing. In fact, they won the International Hermes Award for an innovation in human resource management for this STARS program. So let me close by asking you to think a little bit about the lessons that you take away from this company far away on the other side of the world, the things that we can learn here in America, that we can bring home, that we can scale to American businesses, American organizations. Things like the way customers are treated, building a customer-centric, guest-centric corporate culture, organizational culture, rethinking the relationship, the contract between employer and employee. And finally, let me close by saying this is an amazing, inspirational story that something
Ma'am, please switch on your mic now.
Yeah, sorry. So I hope you guys enjoyed this clip on a case study on the Taj Hotel. So moving on to the next slide. Here is a woman, an American black woman who was a wife of the President of America. Why is she here on my slide? Has she achieved anything of her own? The reason she is here is because she is a leader within herself. To be a President of America, he needs a whole lot of support from his wife. She had a career which she gave up and supported her husband with a vision of making it to the top slot. And she helped him in every possible way, working as hard, if not harder than him. And here's what she had to say about a few things. The only time success appears before work is in the dictionary. So what does it take to become a leader or to become a strong person or to make a mark is having a strong character, because just performance doesn't necessarily get you where you want to be. You have to have a strong character which is recognized by people. As a woman, we are naturally very compassionate, and that adds a quality that is required for the success. Self-confidence, without any doubt, is a lesson that you have to learn and grow up with if you have to be true to yourself. Being a powerful speaker, like I mentioned before, communication is a powerful way of making a point. And if you see all these women that I have enumerated here, all of them have been fantastic orators. You should have perseverance to do what it takes, whatever time it takes, however long it takes to finish the work that you have started. Inspirational. You have to be an inspiration to others. It may not be a comfortable journey, but it is something that people will remember you by. Honesty is something you need to be honest to yourself. You cannot just go with the flow of the people when they try and say, okay, do this, that this is better than what you're thinking. You have to go with your gut feeling. You have to be true to yourself. As a woman, it comes naturally that we are graceful even under pressure. And in this, unlike men, we try to be graceful without taking some time for ourselves, and which is what we need to stop and spend some time on making sure that we have your me time, we have the grooming time, we are well turned out. So we need to invest time in those things. Relatable to others. Michelle is a black woman coming from a black community background, and never ever in this book that she's written, not once does she forget that she comes from a black community and what it means to make it big in America being a black woman. So people relate to her because of this, from where she comes from and how she embraces it. And of course, the last is a time management. If you have to reach a position, you got to prioritize. Your priorities will change. If you have kids, your kids become your priority. Once they grow up, you shift back into a work mode and start making work your priority. So you should be able to balance all these various factors that will help you go a long way. So if you ask yourself, how do I become a CEO? Are there some things that I need to concentrate on? The first is also always don't get fixated on your career aspiration. Focus on your current job. If you look at Smriti Irani, if you look at Kiran, you will realize that they started in a different direction and they are somewhere else now. But they did the best in the careers that they had. When the door opened, they took it and then they moved up the ladder. So the focus on the current job is far more important than just looking at the sky to see where you want to go. While you don't lose sight of that, you have to focus on what you're doing today. You should have a hip pocket skill. What does that mean? It means that there is something that you are very good at. It may be a communications person. You may be able to coax people to do something better. And people in your organization will come to you and say that there's a problem in this group of people. Can you speak to them and sort it out? Or you may be technically very good at or solving technical issues that crop up, so that people come to you and say, okay, there is an error in my system, can you fix it for me? Or you may be good at breaking problems into small solutions and solving them. So people come to you and say that we have a big issue here, can you help us break it down and understand, so we can have all the lower ups start working on it. So that's a hip pocket skill, something that you'll be known for in your organization, and that will add value to your brand. Courage is important. Of course, you need to stand your ground, and whatever you believe in, you need to stand up for it. Communication capability to express yourself so that people understand you better, so that you can convince people better, so that they move in the direction that you want them to move. And finally, ethics. If you are looking for shortcuts, it's going to catch up with you at some point. If you do everything as per the rules and regulations, which is ethically acceptable, you will never have to hide anything from your past. You will always move forward a little slowly but surely. Okay, now here's a very small, do we have time for a very small story which is going to take like 2 minutes? Okay, this is a story of a man in a hot air balloon. A man flying in a hot air balloon suddenly realizes that he's lost. So he reduces his height and he spots a man standing on the ground. So he lowers the balloon further and he shouts to him saying, "Excuse me, can you tell me where I am?" The man who's standing on the ground says, "Yes, you're in a hot air balloon hovering 30 feet above this field." So the man in the balloon says, "You must work in information technology." "I do, how did you know?" "Well," says the balloonist, "everything you've told me is technically correct, but it's of no use to me whatsoever." So the man who's a technical person replies, "You must work in management, because you don't know where you are, you don't know where you're going, yet you expect me to help you." So what is the moral of the story? You are in the same position you were before, but now you have someone else to blame for it. Okay, here are some of the books that have inspired me, and they are lovely reads. So I want to recommend to you, if you ever get an opportunity, or you can just buy it on Amazon. Palace of Illusions is Mahabharata from the Draupadi's point of view. Immensely enjoyable as a read. So any of these are good reads. And finally, a little dig at the men. A woman has to work twice as hard as a man to get half as much as credit as him. Fortunately for us, it's not very difficult. Thank you. Okay.
Lovely session, ma'am. I thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm sure that students would also have enjoyed this session.
I hope so. I'd like to get some feedback. Students, they're all very quiet. Okay.
All right, ma'am. Shall we begin with the question and answers? Yeah. Okay. So the first question is, how should men be involved in women empowerment?
Okay, I think these days women are empowered already, or they know where they want to go. They are educated. Their career focus is bang on. However, I think as men, you should let them be. You should give them the space to grow. You give them space to make their own choices and support in every possible way.
Right. Ma'am, the next question is, many a times we see in Indian conservative families that boys and girls, siblings, are not given same kind of opportunities. So, what should girls do in such cases, as they are still treated as burden? And how this belief in the Indian system should be changed or can be
Yeah.
overcome?
Yeah, okay. So here's the case of Indra Nui herself, who came from a very traditional family in Chennai. And her mother said to her that we need to get you married now. And she wanted to do her master's in America. They thought she's never ever going to get a scholarship, so they said apply, and if you don't get, we'll get you married. And she got a scholarship, and the rest is history. So I think the women have to be very strong and put their foot down and tell them that they want to venture or they want to be financially independent. I think we as women should make them aware as much as possible. Like I talk to my maid, I keep telling her that you need to educate your daughter and she has to be financially independent. So similarly, wherever we have opportunities, we should voice our thoughts on it, on the subject.
So again, one more question related to this have just popped up, that how to deal with conservative parents without hurting them.
Yeah, so this question was posed to Sadhguru in one of the sessions, and I was listening to that. And what he said is each one does not have any kind of obligation to another. We do not have an obligation to our parents. We need to live the life that we would like to live. If it means that we are not hurting anybody, sentiments you can turn, thoughts you can little bit turn. In a short while, your parents will fall in line and they will accept your decisions. But you have to take your own life in your own hands and move accordingly. You can't later at 70 say, my parents never allowed me to do this, and that's why this is where I am.
Right, right. So, ma'am, do you think that there should be strict government laws laid by the government for increasing this women empowerment, like we have law for dowry system, like we have for child education? So, do you think for women empowerment as well, we should have such laws laid by government?
I think some of the laws are already here. There's 30% of reservation everywhere, right from parliament to the educational institutions. 30% seats are reserved for the girls. But having said that, what happens when you're not educated is we see these corporators where there is a reservation for a woman, they will put their wife in front and get her to, get her into the elections and get her voted. And then with remote control, they are totally running the show. That needs to stop somewhere, and that will be, the we as the public need to work on it. We have to make a difference.
Right. Ma'am, one last question. I have done bachelor's in hospitality and tourism management, and now I have applied for PGDM. So, what all the things that I have to work on and keep in mind while pursuing my management degree?
Okay, I think what hotel management does to you is it changes your attitude for sure, and I'm sure you will agree with that. So, with that attitude, if you continue to have focus on what you're doing, concentrate on being good in your class, exploring opportunities, participate in every possible opportunity that you get. Just take it up. I think you'll do good.
Right. All right, ma'am. Thank you so much for this lovely session. We thoroughly enjoyed the session, and I'm sure students have really enjoyed and gained a lot of insights, especially when it comes to women empowerment and what all development we have done in the society in that regard. Thank you so much, ma'am. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Thank you.